Hey everyone, Peter Fenger here, and I've got exciting news. On March 19th, we're hosting the Triad Mental Health Summit Series. This event is online and completely free to attend. This summit will feature Owen Marcus, co-founder of MELD, and Sheetal Shah, CEO of Mental Health Partners, two innovative experts exploring the intersection of somatic therapy and modern AI tools for healthcare transformation. This dynamic experience will offer practical strategies for supporting men's health through embodied somatic practices, alongside cutting-edge insights into utilizing AI to enhance healthcare outcomes. Participants will explore how somatic approaches and technology-driven solutions can work to improve care outcomes. Plus, for those looking to stay ahead for professional requirements, CE credits will be available for attendees. Sharlee and I will be hosting live and performing interactive Q&A sessions with each speaker, so you can go deeper on what matters most to you. This event isn't just professional development, it's a chance to connect with a community of practitioners who are growing alongside this field. So head over to triadhq.com/TSS to see our full schedule and register for free. That's triadhq.com/TSS. I look forward to seeing you there. Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective. Welcome to Behavioral Health Today. I'm your host, Peter Fenger, and I'm joined today by Sharlee Dixon. Hey, Sharlee.
Hey, Peter, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, and I'm really excited about our topic because it is another one of our BHT Bytes, where we'll break down trending topics into quick, digestible episodes. Super easy, casual conversation. We like to have fun. So if you've been through the licensure process, you know that the ASWB exam is often seen as the final daunting hurdle. It is the gatekeeping to social work profession. And for years, we've known exactly what to expect from the 2018 version of the ASWB exam. But as of August 2026, that's changing. The ASWB board has released a new guidebook that completely revised the content outline. We're looking at fewer questions, a heavier focus on ethics, and a shift from what do you know to how do you actually practice. So today, I want to focus our conversation around some of the changes that are happening in August of 2026 of the ASWB exam. And whether you're a student preparing for your first exam or a supervisor guiding a supervisee, Sharlee, I know that you are in the process of taking the ASWB exam for North Carolina. And so today, for BHT Bytes, we're looking at the 2025 changes and what they actually mean, the pros and cons of the new format, and the big question of whether or not you should test now or wait for the update. So what's exactly changing in 2026? The ASWB isn't swapping out questions, they're re-engineering the blueprint based on a massive 2024 practice analysis. So they surveyed 25,000 social workers and revised the exam. So they're taking it from 4 categories to 3 core areas. That is values and ethics, assessment and planning, and intervention in practice. So they're replacing knowledge, skills, and abilities with applied knowledge statements. So it'll read a little bit more like professional reasoning, and it's less about memorizing definitions and more about what do you do when client says X. The exam is looking to see your ability to handle gray areas rather than just textbook answers. Now, just talking about the 3 core areas, values and ethics is now going to be the most heavily weighted section of the exam. This means that the exam is asking you to be an ethical expert. So every scenario in the new exam will be viewed through the lens of the NASWB Code of Ethics. So Shirley, I want to ask you, when you hear values and ethics becoming a primary focus of the exam, does that feel a little bit more like an accurate reflection of what they actually do as a social worker in a room with clients versus maybe the old academic heavy model?
It absolutely is. It's a huge shift, and honestly, it feels like the licensing board is finally catching up to this lived reality of our profession. As a social worker, we have a unique set of code of ethics that not every mental health professional has within their area, and so it is for years we focused on that code of ethics while we actually practice. But the licensing exam that we need to take to actually practice independently did not focus on that. It focused on book knowledge, academic heavy information. And not to say that we should not know everything that's in the DSM, or we should not be able to recall developmental stages that we learned in school, or practice in a textbook. That knowledge is foundation. However, it's very rarely what we do in a daily basis, what we're actually focused on. And so it seems like the move towards values and ethics really acknowledges that social work is less about having the right answer and more about having a sound professional process to make decisions. We deal with, ethical issues on a daily basis, and being able to accurately make decisions and help clients make decisions is something that we do every day. And so to be able to use something that we actually do daily for a licensing exam, I think really does speak to our profession much more than, book knowledge has done.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the exciting part about this is really kind of stepping away from maybe a test taker's test
Yes.
to more of an ethical focus. I think it will benefit those in the actual practice of social work rather
Yes.
than maybe like the academic knowledge around social work. Right. I think that the
Right.
change is a step toward this evolution towards creating a standard of ethical practitioners.
Right, right,
Yes.
right. And I really think that that's like it focuses more on integrity and
Mhm.
having a safe practice, not, deviating from where our profession says how we should work with patients. And so it really looks at, like I said, integrity and safety as a primary skill versus book knowledge. Again, not saying that we don't or shouldn't know those things, but if it's in a book, generally we can look it up, right? Just being able to make an ethical decision is not something that you can just read in a book. It's going
Mhm.
to come from practicing that information and really understanding what the ethics really are, and not just being able to regurgitate information.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. So let's talk a little bit about the actual exam structure because that too is changing. And I think one of the most surprising updates is that the exam is actually getting shorter, but the time limit is staying the same. So currently there is 170 questions with 150 scored and 20 pre-test questions. The 2026 format is going to have 122 questions with 110 being scored and 12 being pre-test questions, so unscored. Those are questions that they're testing in order to refine the future questions going forward. But you still get 4 hours to take the exam. So while it seems easier, the shorter test actually means that each scored question has a higher impact on your final result. So there's less cushion for mistakes. Now,
Yeah.
the current exam is mostly 4 option multiple choice questions, where the next exam is actually going to be a mix of 3 and 4 option questions. I think this is kind of an interesting detail because specifically the variation of 3 or 4 questions, it doesn't make the questions easier. It makes it more precise. So currently with the 4 questions, you can use test taking strategies in order to eliminate answers or sort of a guess and check strategy. Whereas this new format actually forces you to choose between two very similar good answers and which one is the best.
Mhm.
So Charlie, on one hand, fewer questions sound like a relief, but with more time per question, do you think that actually helps a test taker's focus, or would it actually create more space for overthinking that, social workers are known for?
I mean, I laugh because as a social worker, I do tend to overthink things. And the more time that I have with an issue or with a topic, it allows me to peel back the layers of that particular problem, which I mean, it can be a good thing and it also can be a bad thing. So this test can easily become a trap for folks. I
Mhm.
mean, it's great for stamina. It allows you the extra time that you need, but it can also cause issues with certainty. Again, on the positive side, more time for each question allows you to like triage the situation. A lot of these questions are going to continue to have different qualifiers like first, best, next, most. having more time gives you the space to really dig deeper and to think through those questions. Who did it? What happened? Where did it happen? How did it happen? Really dig through those, those stem of the questions without necessarily being concerned with how much time you have. In the master's level exam that I've already taken, it was, oh my gosh, I have just a few minutes. Let me really think really quickly about what I need to do and how fast can I do it. So it alleviates that I need to move faster piece. But on the other side of that, you do have more time to add extra layers or really read more into the question than what is actually there. Instead of just taking the content that they give you, it's easy to add extra pieces to those questions or even think deeper about the people in the question and what their name might signify about them or their scenario, what that really means behind the scenes. It can be easy to get caught up in what isn't important for the actual question. So, I mean, I do think that it can be easy to get trapped, but there are ways to get around that. Generally, your first answer or what first sticks out to you generally is instinct. That general
Mm.
instinct is going to come through in that first question and that first answer. So really focus on that. And if you think that your answer needs to change, try using only the words from the actual question to see if it really is what you're looking for. Instead of trying to look deeper into it and add extra layers, just really focusing on what you have there in front of you. Or even taking each question and reading each question two or three times and come up with your own answer before even looking at the answers that you have there. So,
Mm.
using that time that you have more wisely, instead of trying to add extra things, really dig deep into what the question is actually asking you before you answer your question can be
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah. It's interesting when you presented that answer. A couple things came to my mind. One is I can see how a reformat of this exam in this format, opposed to the 2018 version, is
Mhm.
actually a better reflection of the practice because I think that by actually studying for this exam might help you become a better efficacious practitioner. And
Yeah.
I think that that kind of helps, right? Because we sort of want to develop and craft our practice. This actually might help folks, really hit that standardization of practitioner before entering into the field. So it might be a little bit more accurate. The other thing is you're also painting a very interesting perspective of how we're currently doing the exam 2018 version to the
Mhm.
new exam and sort of how to approach those questions, right? It's not about test taking skills, it's about ethics and how you might approach it. And so even just your approach of read the question, answer it yourself, then see what answers are available that align with
Yes.
your approach. I think that that's a really smart approach to test taking, especially when it comes down to it being timed.
It's about your values and ethics, and so you
Mhm,
wanna make sure that you're really thinking about what those are before you kinda taint yourself with
mhm.
the options that are placed in front of you.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one step in the direction of standardized testing, but
Mhm.
not necessarily having to maybe present in front of a panel of your peers, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's trying
Yeah.
to find this collaboration of the two. So
Right.
so we get to look forward to a new format and kind of just to sort of park on current exam and studying for the next exam, or really building skills for today for a change tomorrow. Really, a common fear is if we start studying now, that it's
Mhm.
going to be a waste of time until the 2026 changes. But really, the core clinical reasoning, it's not changing. It's really just how it's measured. So
Right.
preparing for the ASWB exam now means that you'll be studying with current materials of the exam that we know. But
Mhm.
current topics such as assessment or clinical intervention, professional boundaries, those are going to be universal. Those are the things that will carry over for this exam as well as the exam into the future.
Right.
So another thing as we sort of evaluate the current landscape for exam prep is we want to start to look for exam prep materials that will say that updated materials will be coming soon. So I know companies like ATBS as well as other exam prep companies will mention about updates. We're aware of the updates and updates are coming later. So surely if somebody who really values professional development, do you think the stress of looming changes helps motivate people to get their license sooner? Or does it really just add a necessary layer of anxiety to the process?
Hmm. That's a really good question. Because really looking at through a lens of growth, I mean, it is an opportunity for folks to really figure out if this is a good time or if it's not. We haven't had a change to this test since 2018, and so I know I haven't thought about anything about there being a change. So it's a new thought process to really think about like this is really changing and how the test is going to test me.
Mhm.
Is changing as well. So the best time I can honestly say the best time to test is when your logic is consistent. If you're currently taking practice exams, you've been studying, you understand and you like get this current logic, like all up on everything that's in DSM, medications that are necessary. Like, what is there. You've been taking practice exams, you feel comfortable with what they're asking in this version of the test, then right now is the time for you. Like, don't, let that looming change be a fire under your feet to get it done because it is going to change. If you feel comfortable now, go ahead and go with that comfort level. But if you're someone like me that is not, I'm not up to date with all of the current academic heavy information. It has been I to not date myself, but many decades since I was in the master's level program for social work. And, it was even before the 2018 changes. So my mind is not quite ready for the logic that's there now. However, because I have been practicing for a few decades, I understand ethics. I really sit back and think about things before I make decisions in practice. I can understand how things shift and change and how a small choice that you make can really impact the lives of not just your patients but your license level and your safety within your career. And so if you're someone who is understanding of values and ethics and you know are interested in assessing your natural clinical strengths and skills that you've been using, then maybe it is best for you to wait. If you're not quite ready for it, then trying to rush yourself towards being ready is not going to help you. So motivation is great, but hurrying yourself can be dangerous and adding that level of anxiety to a test that already is anxiety producing, to be real, and trying to get it in by a certain time frame adds an extra level of unnecessary strain. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Are you preparing for a licensure exam in psychology, social work, marriage and family therapy, counseling, or behavioral analysis? AATBS is here to help. We have been supporting behavioral and mental health students to prepare for their licensure exams for more than 45 years, working with over 1 million students to succeed on test day and move on to the next step in their career. With products ranging from comprehensive courses to quiz banks and delivered live online, self-study online, and in print, AATBS has test prep solutions that meet every student's needs and learning styles. Visit us today at aatbs.com. That's aatbs.com and use promo code BHT15 to save 15% off your next purchase.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, you want to be able to go into your exam feeling confident,
Mhm.
not feeling like there's a deadline you have to hit. I think you've done a
Right.
really nice job of really outlining two different test takers
Right.
that will benefit from these current or next format. If you're one who does well from an academic perspective, the
Mhm.
current format kind of lends itself towards that knowledge. But if
Right.
you're somebody who values the actual practice and that comes more natural, the 2026 exam is more in line to that kind of skill set.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And if you feel ready and if you feel comfortable for it, don't wait. Just go
right.
for it. But
Yes,
if it's that change is making you more anxious and I'm oh gosh, I think I'm ready. I'm not sure if I'm ready. I'm not ready, then you're not. Like listen to
right.
yourself. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about why testing before August 2026 makes sense, right? Because we talked about there's a strategic window right now. And if we actually wait to 2026, you might be actually pushing your career by 6 to 12 months
Yeah.
before the actual test takes changes. And really, there can be some advantages. But currently, we know the 2018 format. There's a lot of data, there's hundreds of practice questions available
Mm-hmm.
for this current exam. We
Yeah.
already outlined that beginning your exam practice now doesn't necessarily mean that you're studying for the wrong exam. There can just be other parts that sort of can highlight as we enter 2026 and some of those changes. And again, if you are one that can test and get this done, it means that you're entering the professional practice and earning a higher salary sooner than those that have to wait for those changes. So
That's true.
also, the other opportunity is that there are exam prep companies that offer that safety net, right? Look for past guarantees, look for updates to materials as those change, because what you purchase now can then get refreshed or content updates later on. So you understand that because you're testing or getting materials now, that there's not necessarily a cutoff after August 2026.
Got you.
So, Charlie, I know you are a supervisee currently, but if you were a supervisor now, would you be pushing your supervisees to sprint for the finish and finish before that August 2026 update? Or would you actually tell them to take their time and wait for the new, shorter version?
Right. It honestly, what I am beginning to learn about the supervision process is that it takes 2 years
Mm,
of once a week or more sessions with your, supervisor, supervisee, one-on-one basis, and you sit and talk about things for at least an hour every week. In that 2 year period, you as a supervisor begin to know your supervisee. You know how they tick, you know how they think, you know the things they're good at, you know the things that they are not so good at. And as a supervisee, if done correctly, you know those things about yourself as well. So a lot of this takes a certain level of self-awareness to understand what I was just mentioning, in the last answer. How well are you ready for this? Just because even as a supervisee, if my supervisor says, "Oh girl, you got this," but if I don't feel ready for it, then I should not do it. And as a supervisor, you have to know your supervisee if they are really ready for this type of test, or if you understand that they get the ethical practices and the decision making skills that are necessary for this new test. Maybe it's best for them to wait until then. Again, does your supervisee, do they have anxiety around test taking? Are they going to be okay with a brand new test? Like you said, that we don't necessarily know what's in it. All of the updates have not been provided for us. Those types of things can cause a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty for folks. So, if you are that type of person and you're ready for the other test, you're ready to test, you've been practicing, you've been doing you're honing your test strategies based on the academic heavy model, then by all means take that version of the test. Get it done while you can. So honestly, a lot of it really is assessing your supervisee. Like, are they ready for this now? Or should we wait and give it some time? Allow them to really continue to hone their skills, and let's focus on the ethical side of this. Let's not necessarily not learn the academic information or not focus on that, but let's start to shift things. And you can start that shift now. The test is going to be different in August. You can begin to do that shift now, so that when that shift happens, your supervisee is even more ready than they are today.
yeah. Yeah. I like that perspective because, again, we can start to shift now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We can start to think about case study thinking
Mhm.
now as the exam will change, right?
Right.
So the next point I really want to talk about is how do we stay ready? ASWB is tricking out details. They've already mentioned that information is subject to change, but really the best people to follow is going to be the ASWB board themselves. You can also look at reputable test preps like AATBS for latest updates. I know that there's a blog to follow over there, as well as an entire page dedicated to ASWB updates. And mentioning again, this is a chance to start to shift applied knowledge toward case study thinking. And again, like really, the goal is the same. You're providing a safe, ethical practitioner. But as you mentioned, Charlie, this is kind of an interesting chance for things to evolve. And as you look at the profession evolving, how would you like to see these licensing boards continue to adapt? Are you thinking maybe a shorter, more ethics focused exam is in step with the right direction for the future of this industry?
Absolutely. And I'll answer it kind of in two parts. So I want to start from the beginning with the evolution of the exam itself. I've been a social worker since about 2009. That's when I became licensed as an LMSW. And at that time, the licensure test was even more different then than it became in 2018, and then this
Right.
shift that is happening now. in 2026. So it's refreshing to see that our profession is really adapting, that we are really evolving, that we're really changing to fit the times. And so it's pretty cool to be a part of a profession that understands that times are changing and we need to change along with it.
Mhm.
But of course, there's always room for growth. And I'd really like to advocate for universal licensing. I know that there is a interstate compact that is in the works. Not all states have joined on to that yet. So seeing the process towards that is welcomed. Absolutely. It because right now the names of licenses, the levels, the requirements, they're all different from state to state. And in many professions, you can go and take a licensing exam in one state, earn your license, take that license to another state, apply, and you get your license in that state as well. But with social work, it's not the same.
Mhm.
I moved from South Carolina, where I am still LMSW, but in North Carolina, that license level does not even exist. And so while it did allow me an opportunity to grow, to change, to evolve, to fit the needs of my new environment, it also caused a lot of stress in trying to figure out, well, now what am I supposed to do? I have this, this license that I cannot necessarily use here, and I need to work towards something completely different. And that's great. And I am working toward that at this point. But at first, it took some time to really adjust to this new level of normal. And so I want that for the future of my profession, to have that one universal licensing procedure across all states. I know that it's coming, and so I'm looking forward to, to that change. Otherwise, the test itself has often been criticized for creating racial and socioeconomic pass rate disparities. So, in many communities, especially in communities of color, we have not always been able to pass that exam with the same rate that other communities have. And I'm hoping that with a shorter, ethically focused exam will help that. And so I'm glad to see that boards are moving towards something different and more, competency based questions and, decision making, focus, because that is, as a social worker, what we do. We use our ethical basis to make decisions. And so it's nice to see that that is, something that we are working towards. And with, AATBS, as a part of the Triad family, I've been a part of the test prep work there for a couple years as well. And so we've actually gone through and changed all of our test prep material to be more culturally aware, and to
Mhm.
make sure that the questions that we're asking, that everyone can understand them, and that there's a range, and it's diverse types of questioning and diverse names, and we're including all different types of vignettes within there, so it's not just one focus. I know that when I took my licensing exam, the one thing that I can still remember is people telling me, answer the questions based on the book, don't necessarily answer the questions based on what you would do in real life. And that's kind of sad in social work, that you aren't able to use your daily skills, things that you would actually really do in practice in the field, and you're not able to use that on the test. So it's nice to see that that is what is already occurring. And so I'm interested to see how far that goes, and including more, diverse situations into those vignettes and those questions.
Yeah, I agree. I have heard those criticisms around, the board exams and really the gap between passing scores of populations of color,
Yeah.
and that there really is a opportunity for things to become more equal. And I do agree with you. I think that a change toward competency
Mhm.
rather than say like academic knowledge is a positive shift. We mentioned before, I think that this is the happy marriage between really demonstrating your practice in a room
Mhm.
full of peers and really just your understanding of ethics. I think that this is sort of the marriage between that and standardized testing.
It
um,
really is. And I honestly do think this is, even with the criticisms, I do think this is absolutely a step in the right direction. While reducing the question load, it allows you to use your best judgment, and not just how quickly you can answer a question or how quickly you can recall information. It really digs deep into what makes us unique as social
yes.
workers, is our focus on the code of ethics. With it being the most heavily weighted section, it sounds like the board is saying we care more about integrity than your ability to memorize and regurgitate information. And that
Yes.
is refreshing. It feels like we are now being seen as social workers and what we really bring to the mental health profession. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, yeah, it is an exciting change, and one of the things that I also think is a really interesting opportunity is that our world after 2020 gave us some liberties
Hmm.
that I think we can see the impact of addressing the mental health crisis.
Absolutely.
And I think that, not only just what you're talking about of sort of universal licensing, which can
Hmm.
be a real assistance to addressing those who need help, but really a change in the exam and creating a more standardized practice that will raise more efficacious social workers
Yep.
will also help address that. Rather than sort of creating a barrier based on sort of academic knowledge, you're really testing a group based off of their practice and the
Yes.
ethics that are around it and an understanding of the NASW code of ethics and really creating a new generation of social workers that'll go out into the field with that strong knowledge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm hoping that it includes some level of focus on, again, like you mentioned, those types of changes, like the increase or even the introduction of telehealth across state
Yes.
lines, or even algorithmic bias that comes across to, the introduction of technology. So I'm looking forward to where the new test takes us, and what pieces we haven't heard about yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. So, really, at the end of the day, a change in the exam format doesn't change the heart of what social workers do. Whether the ASWB is asking for 170 questions or 122, they're really looking for the same thing: a clinician who can think critically, act ethically, and protect the well being of their clients. If you're on the fence, remember that the skills you're building now, pacing, reasoning, and ethics, are going to serve you regardless of what version of the exam you sit for. August 2026 will be here before you know it, but the path to licensure starts with the work you do today. We'll be keeping a close eye on the updates and sharing them as they break. But for today, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of BHT Bytes. And we'll see you next time on Behavioral Health Today. We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Tried Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.